everyone, it's Josh with Tuxedo Talk, and unfortunately, the Freddie Mercury mustache is gone. I was trying to justify keeping it because I had, as I'd said in the previous video, if you want to be a modern day Freddie Mercury, you need three things: a wonderful mustache to form one of the greatest rock bands ever, and to contract AIDS. I had the mustache, I had the band started, but unfortunately my superior immune system just would not allow me to contract AIDS, no matter how hard I tried. So I gave up, disbanded the band, and shaved the mustache. But 'tis life, and that's why I'm trying a different setting this time around. And we're going to be having a nice cigar and a nice bit of whiskey as we discuss our next person, and that is Jon Jones, the UFC MMA fighter. And anticipating what a number of people say. Oh, and before we continue, if you want to know the proper way to cut a cigar, the best thing you can do is find a hard surface, take your cigar cutter, lay it down on said hard surface, and then just place the cigar butt in there, and then cut. See? Perfect. Not too much, not too little. Nails it every time. But what we're going to be talking about today is Jon Jones, and why he is not and never will be the GOAT. Now, Jon Jones is a UFC fighter and is perhaps the most talented fighter ever, and is probably pound for pound one of the best, if not the best. But the reason why I say Jon Jones is not the best, first I have to give you a little bit of forefront knowledge of the way that I view things. You have basic types of fighters. You have the wild man fighter. You have the warrior monk. Those are, to me, the two basic types. And most fighters, if not all, are some combination of the two. The best examples of the wild man fighter, in my opinion, are from way back in the day. I'm talking mid 2000s, somewhere around 2005, 2006. It was during the Chuck Liddell championship times. There was a guy by the name of Clay Guida. Clay Guida was not the most talented guy in the world. The guy just really loved to scrap. He was not championship material, but he never backed down, and he did crazy shit. Another more modern example of the wild man fighter would be Cowboy Cerrone. Cowboy was more talented than Guida, and perhaps not talented enough to ever be a real championship contender, but was always very, very dangerous. Always rotate the cigar as you light it. So that is the archetype of the wild man fighter. The wild man fighter, they don't, I'm not going to say that they don't train hard, but they're too busy being wild men to ever truly, truly be the best. And they more depend on sheer talent. And now Jon Jones definitely fits that criteria, in that the man is so incredibly talented that he could, as he said to DC, do cocaine, Maker's Mark whiskey, and party the week before the fight and still beat him. That's how talented that man was. And that personifies the wild man fighter. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of fans, including myself, love guys like this. Now, at the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the warrior monk. And to me, the best example of that is Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson. The guy was a quiet guy, respectable guy, clean cut, never got into trouble, never did anything crazy. The man just loved his family, trained, and whooped ass. Another great example of that would be Khabib. So these are guys whom they have the talent. They're just genetic phenoms, but they also are so completely dedicated to their craft. They just do that and nothing else. And they tend to beat the wild man. They tend to be true GOATs in the contention for being the greatest. If Mike Tyson had had better people around him, he would have been unquestionably the greatest of all time. The only person that ever beat Mike was Mike. So, that's the other archetype. And Jon Jones seemed to be the wild man that cracked the code. This isn't to say that the man didn't work hard, but he was first and foremost a wild guy who was just beating all the guys who were completely dedicated, like DC. Now, I said that to say this, is that there's also another type of person, and that is the warrior monk that just comes up short. And the best example of that, in my opinion, is TJ Dillashaw, or Killashaw. DJ Killashaw was completely and utterly dedicated to his craft. The guy wanted to be a champ, go down as one of the greatest, if not the greatest fighter. There's only one problem with that. The guy had a fucked shoulder, and he just did not have the same talent level as a guy like Mighty Mouse or Henry Cejudo. So, what did he decide to do? He decided to cheat. He decided to use PEDs. And it's a hell of a thing for a man to sit there and look in the mirror and say, I'm giving my absolute everything. My training, my diet, my life is totally dedicated to this. But I'm just coming up short, and there's nothing more I can do. Those other guys who are at the tippy top of the mountain, they're just better than me. And there's nothing I can do about it. That's a hard pill to swallow. That's a really hard pill to swallow. And some guys can do it. Other guys can't. And TJ decided, I can't accept that. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to try to win. And then when he got caught, he owned up to it. He said, yeah, I did what I did. And he took his lumps for it. And I can't respect his choices that he made, but I can respect the way he handled it once he was caught. Now, on the opposite end of that spectrum, now you have Jon Jones. Jon Jones had the absolute talent of the wild man and could have been the warrior monk if he dedicated himself. But instead, he chose to want to go out and party and do crazy shit. And if he was a true just warrior wild man, he wouldn't have cheated. Because the man popped positive multiple times for PEDs. If he'd have been a true GOAT, a true next level fighter, the greatest, he would have went, yeah, I party, I don't take my training as seriously as I possibly could, but I don't need to because I'm that much better. But he did that. He would not take his training as serious. He would party. He would do the things that he do. And then he would cheat to make up for it. And then to look another man in the face who didn't cheat and say, yeah, I did cocaine a week before our fight, and I still beat you, while knowing that you cheated. That's a level of scumbag that's terrible to me. You're not the I'm gonna let it all hang out wild man like Cowboy. You're not the I'm dedicated to my craft Mighty Mouse. You're not the I'm coming up short but I can't accept it and I'll own up to it when I get caught of Dillashaw. So yeah, he had every opportunity to be the greatest. He could have been the greatest of all time. But because of that, I will never see him as that. It's impossible for me to look at Jon Jones, knowing he did what he did, is who he is, and say that's the greatest fighter. And keep in mind, I don't care that he's a wild man. I don't care that he goes out and commits felonies or does crazy shit. Believe it or not, people that get punched in the face for a living don't exactly tend to be the most stable. This is the best version of him that we're going to get. And it's fine. Fighters who do a little bit of crime are much, much better than the alternative on how they could have turned out. So no, that's not a problem to me. My problem with the man is that you didn't dedicate yourself, and then you cheated to make up for that lack of dedication, and then tried to act to the world as if you're just a raw talent that you overcame it. So, now, that is why he will never, ever, ever, to me, be in the conversation to be the greatest of all time, or even a great fighter. He very well, you could argue, say he's the most talented fighter, but the greatest, or even great? No, absolutely not. Oh, and just anticipating, yes, I know the man could absolutely kick my ass. I'm underneath no illusions of that.